walking into a classroom where all of its students are running on 6 hours of sleep. Their brains are foggy, their stress levels are at an all-time high, and their ability to focus is nearly non-existent. Now imagine that this isn't just one classroom, but a nationwide trend. As depicted by popritnews.org, the student body of Mayfield High School was surveyed based off of how many hours of sleep that they have gotten in the past nights. It is demonstrated that the majority of the students at Mayfield High School do not nearly get enough hours of sleep, as the students only get up to 6 hours of sleep, as that's what the majority of the students answered, resulting in them being sleep deficient. Moreover, sleep deficiency in adolescents can drastically increase their chances of developing neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease. This type of dementia is caused by protein plaques and neurofibrillary tangles within the brain, which can lead to cell degeneration and death. Moreover, in the College Board Stimulus 2024 Alzheimer's Association Disease and Fact Figures, the Alzheimer's Association states that neurons damaged first are those in the parts of the brain that are responsible for memory, language, and thinking, which is why the first symptoms tend to be memory, language, and thinking problems. In conjunction with this, the main part of the brain that is associated with this function is the hippocampus. Therefore, this is how the hippocampus is responsible for all of these functions, and therefore this is how they are increasing their chances of developing Alzheimer's in the future. This leads over to my research topic, the sleep deficiency epidemic. Good morning, my name is Adeline Docpano, and now that we have established that it is imperative for teenagers to get sufficient hours of sleep, this leads to my research question. To what extent does sleep deficiency among adolescents negatively affect their well-beings? Well, the answer to this is sleep deficiency negatively affects the health, safety, and academic success of teenagers. Furthermore, in what ways can adolescents getting insufficient hours of sleep negatively affect their health? Well, for starters, the recommended number of hours of sleep to get is 8 hours, which unfortunately many adolescents cannot accomplish today. Moreover, in a study completed by Ji Wu and other researchers, participants ranging from ages 10 to 18 were restricted to only 5 hours of sleep over a basis of 5 nights. Consequently, in the graph, we can see an 18.3% increase in the percentages of overweight for males and also an increase in the percentage of obesity for all the other age groups as well. Furthermore, being obese could lead to various health risks such as cardiovascular diseases and diabetes. Mentally speaking, the negative stigma that surrounds those who are obese could negatively affect the mental health of those who are sleep deficient, which leads to my next claim, the mental repercussions. The psychological disorder depression leads the affected person to be constantly in a state of sadness and hopelessness. Furthermore, in this graph by abrighterday.org, the odds of teenagers feeling sad and hopeless increased by 38% as the hours of sleep that they got per night decreased. Therefore, this shows that the amount of sleep that teenagers get per night decreases. The chances of committing suicide, attempting to commit suicide, or even considering suicide drastically increases, which demonstrates the significant extent of which sleep deficiency affects teens. And now for sleep deficiency's effect on safety in teens. When teens lack the crucial hours of sleep that they need to function properly, this can lead to severe cognitive impairments, which can negatively affect their judgment and decision-making skills. All these attributes are crucial to staying alert at the wheel because the students need to drive to school, practices, etc. This graph by the National Sleep Foundation demonstrates that sleep deficiency in teens can have a significant impact on the safety of teens by increasing their chances of getting into a fatal car crash by 10.2%. Because not getting sufficient hours of sleep leads to drowsiness and cognitive impairment, staying alert at the wheel is nearly impossible. Furthermore, this timeline, created by utilizing findings from the mental health and addiction research by Jeffrey Deverensky, portrays the order in which a teen can succumb to drug addiction and alcohol addiction. Insufficient rest can lead to negative effects on a teen's decision-making skills and vulnerability, which will lead them to begin to take some form of self-medication, such as alcohol or abuse of melatonin, which is a sleep-inducing drug. This consequently results in risk-induced behavior, and the high that comes with this behavior will lead to the students be wanting to keep on taking these drugs and therefore develop alcohol use disorders. Lastly, we are going to talk about how sleep deficiency can affect the academic success of adolescence. While students are in school, it is imperative for students to stay attentive to the teacher and actually comprehend what is being taught. Furthermore, this graph by Adam David McCullough at Penn State University demonstrates a linear correlation with the amount of hours of sleep that students get and an increase in their GPA. This shows that sleep deficiency within teens does have an effect on their academic success, as getting under the recommended number of hours of 8 hours of sleep results in a negative increase in their GPA. In addition to a decreasing GPA, sleep deficiency among teens can also affect their chances of getting into college by resulting in them having a negative track record with their peers as well as their teachers. Not getting adequate hours of sleep can consequently lead to being tardy in school, failing tests, and being socially distant from their teachers. Additionally, this graph by Science Direct shows how the odds of failing a test for students getting less than 8 hours of sleep drastically increases. This is because students would have a better odds at passing a test if they just got sufficient hours of sleep, rather than staying up till 2 a.m. cramming for an exam. Furthermore, the solution to the sleep deficiency epidemic among teens is simple, yet impossible to achieve for the entirety of the adolescent population. This is because no matter what efforts are taken to stop teens from being sleep deficient, there will always be that small percentage that will stay up late because they procrastinated studying for a test, or stay up late because they started to use technology before they went to bed. Furthermore, according to this graph by BMJ Academic Journals, almost 100% of girls and boys reported using their cell phones an hour prior to before going to bed. This consequently overstimulates the brain, leading teens to unnecessarily stay up way longer than they have to, wasting sufficient hours of sleep that they need. By refraining from using technology an hour prior to before going to bed, this could solve sleep deficiency among adolescents for the most part, allowing teens to go to bed and get some much needed shut-eye. Thank you.
Say it to yourself, Shamrock. All right, 2 questions for you, Ed. First up, what evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and why did you choose not to use it?
Some evidence that I gathered that I chose not to use was an electrocephalogram of a 10-year-old's brain, because an electrocephalogram is basically a picture that shows the electric activity within a brain. And I found one that showed a 10-year-old's brain, but my area of focus was mainly on adolescents, teenagers ages 13 to 19. And I felt that if I included the 10-year-old's electrocephalogram, then that would veer way too far off from the group that I was actually focusing on.
Okay. And what advice would you have for other people that talk about this subject?
Some advice that I would have for other people that would research this topic or talk about this subject would to maybe explore the other age groups of how sleep deficiency has an effect on the other age groups, because I think that it'd be important to just be educated on the effects of sleep deficiency throughout all the age groups instead of just focusing and limiting yourself to one.